Hello, Educate community, and welcome back. If it's your first time here, my name is Rebecca Simons, and this is the channel where we discuss all things EdTech. Today's 1-hour workshop is all about unlocking student engagement and curiosity in your classroom using Explore boards. In part 1 of our session, we'll define what an Explore board is and talk about the pedagogy behind this approach to learning. Part 2 will focus on the ins and outs of designing your Explore board. We'll be talking about how to craft inquiry-based questions, selecting resources, creating engaging layouts, choosing a platform to package your content, and finally, how we can leverage AI to help us out with the creation process. By the end of this workshop, you'll be ready to create an Explore board to use in your own classroom. So let's get started. We're going to kick things off by defining what an Explore board is. Now, an Explore board is basically a visual interactive collection of linked resources that centers around a specific theme, topic, or issue. The term Explore board was actually coined by EdTech thought leader Holly Clark, but you may have frequently heard them referred to as a multimedia text set or an MMTS. I want you to think of an Explore board as a museum exhibit on a specific topic. And within that exhibit, there are a variety of resources. You've got images, audio, video, text, and each one helps provide a unique lens to view that topic through. So Explore boards are made up of 4 key components: visual organization, resource variety, an inquiry-based question, and a visible thinking routine. Let's start with number 1, visual organization. How you organize your content makes a difference. What you see here on the screen are perfect examples of visual organization in action. The layout reminds me of a game board, and it uses visual elements to help invite curiosity about the topic. Each image is then linked to a resource that students can explore. Now, I want to contrast this with a more traditional approach. Both of these examples contain the exact same information, but notice the difference between them. The example that uses visual organization is automatically the one that catches my eye. And then, of course, the game board layout is going to completely transform how I interact with the content. Number 2, resource variety. So when it comes to resources, you want to mix it up. You could use anything from videos to articles to pictures to even a podcast. Not only is this a great way to represent the diverse information we consume in today's society, but it can also to help enrich your students' learning experience because you're providing multiple perspectives about whatever topic you're covering. For each resource on your Explore board, start by setting a goal for exploration by using action words. These words help to cue students into either the purpose of the resource or what you want them to do with it. Directly below this action word, you should include an image or an icon that represents the resource. Finally, underneath the visual, you should include a title which is hyperlinked to the resource. Number 3, inquiry-based question. Every Explore board should center around an inquiry-based question. It's similar to when you set a purpose for reading. The question gives your students a direction and a focus as they're exploring. Finally, number 4 is a visible thinking routine. I borrowed this element of my Explore board from the Next Generation Teachers Playbook, and I truly believe that this component is what transforms an Explore board into a powerful learning experience. Prior to this, I'll be honest, I always thought they were a little fluffy. Here's what this component might look like in action. Once my students have explored, they could click on a link where they're taken to a fig jam, where I've already given them a space to reflect and make their thinking visible through a routine called See, Think, Wonder. This type of routine is what helps to move your students simply from passive consumption of resources to active learning. Now, we'll talk more about this later in the video, but if you really want to explore visible thinking routines in more depth, then I would highly encourage you to check out Project Zero's Thinking Routine Toolbox that's put together by the Harvard Graduate School of Education. All right, now that we understand what an Explore Board is, let's move into the more practical side of things, how you can introduce them into your classroom. So Explore Boards are an incredibly versatile tool. I particularly love them because they can be used for any subject at any grade level. They're especially powerful when you're kicking off a new unit. Picture this. It's day one of your new unit, and you introduce an Explore Board that's filled with interactive elements like Google Earth tours, videos, and interactive images. Instead of starting with a traditional lecture, your students are immediately engaged with these materials, helping to spark curiosity and setting the stage for deeper learning as you go through your unit. But I don't want you to get hung up on the fact that an Explore Board has to be used at the beginning of a lesson. They could also be used as an enrichment, an extension, or maybe even a way to scaffold and support research projects, particularly if you're trying to do research with younger learners. Now, while we want to make sure our students are engaged, we also need to make sure that our teaching practices are grounded in sound pedagogy. So we're going to get nerdy here for just a moment. Explore Boards are actually deeply rooted in constructivist theory. And this theory is all about encouraging students to actively engage with the content, reflect, and then construct knowledge through, I bet you guessed it, exploration. Additionally, several instructional models, such as the Hyperdox learning cycle and the 5E's instructional model, also emphasize an explore phase at the beginning of the learning process. Each of the four components we mentioned earlier play a role in creating this type of learning environment. So we're going to go through a couple of the benefits of using this tool. Explore Boards are going to give your students autonomy and choice, which, as we know, is one of the most powerful motivators for learning. This shift from passive to active engagement means that every single student is involved, interacting with the content. They're not just sitting and copying down notes. But as they're exploring, they're also building foundational knowledge about that topic, which is going to help the future learning they do more sticky. Through this exploration, they're also getting the benefit of being exposed to a variety of perspectives, which then in turn can be brought to a class discussion, which is going to create a richer learning environment and discussion. All right, moving right along into part 2, designing your Explore Board. I'll be guiding our discussion with this 5-part infographic I've put together. If you're part of the 1-hour workshop, you should have received a copy of this in your email. Now, as we know, with all good teaching, the first step is to always start by considering your why. Some of the reasons you might want to think about using an Explore Board might include building background knowledge, providing a differentiated deep dive into a topic, supplemental materials, an extension activity, scaffolded research, or even content review. Step 2 is going to be crafting an inquiry-based question. This question is going to be the cornerstone of your board, and it's really similar to an essential question. In fact, if you already have an essential question for your unit, I would just use that. Think of this as an opportunity to start planting a seed of curiosity that can grow throughout your entire unit. As an example, let's say I'm teaching a unit on the impact of technology on society. My question might be something like, how has technology transformed the human experience over the past century? This question isn't looking for my students to list or summarize tech advancements. Instead, it's pushing them to that higher level of critical thinking by asking them to start drawing connections between how technology has impacted historical events, societal shifts, etc. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I find crafting good essential questions or inquiry based questions really hard. But this is where we can leverage generative AI or a tool like ChatGPT to do some of the heavy lifting for us. Now, I just want to say if you aren't interested in using AI at this time, that is perfectly okay. Feel free to simply skip ahead to the next part where we're going to start talking about resources. This isn't a video on prompt engineering, so I don't want to go too far down this rabbit hole. But the more context and keywords you include in your prompt, the better the response you're going to get. I want you to think of it like you're delegating a task to somebody else. They really want to help you, but they need a lot of context to carry it out exactly to your expectations. For our demonstration today, I've pulled up ChatGPT and I'm going to be using GPT-4. We're going to start by assigning the AI the role of an expert in K-12 instructional pedagogy and curriculum design, specializing in creating explore boards. Assigning the AI a role helps to prime it to generate high-quality educational content. Next, I'm going to provide specifics like grade level, the central concept of my Explore board, and the standards I plan on covering. For this scenario, I'm actually going to change grade level to audience. So my audience is K-12 teachers. My key concept is Explore boards or multimedia tech sets. And maybe we want to say, and their impact on learning. My curriculum standards are the ISTE standards for educators, number 5, designer. Next, I want to specify that I'm looking for a list of questions. I can even state how many questions I'd like. Here I've said I need a list of 10 essential or inquiry-based questions. Since we're asking it to generate questions, I also want to emphasize the type of question I'm looking for. I want an essential or inquiry-based question that's going to open up students' thinking, not questions that have a single answer. So I've stated that the questions should be open-ended and designed to foster exploration and curiosity. Again, the more context you give it, the happier you're going to be with your results. Next, I want to explicitly state my purpose or objective. In this case, I want my questions to incite exploration and help my students discover connections between the diverse resources that I'm putting on the board. So here I've chosen to write, the purpose of these questions is to encourage teachers to discover connections between diverse resources on the Explore board related to why using Explore boards in the classroom can be beneficial to learning. Finally, I want to list any limitations, like how long I want the activity to take or where in the learning cycle it's going to occur. So for this part, I stated each question should set the stage for a minute, introductory exploration activity. So at this point, I'm going to send my prompt and we're going to see what it gives us. All I need to do is read through my options and see if there's one that I'm happy with, or maybe I could take a couple and combine it to create one that I think will be really good for my Explore board. But this is given me in a matter of seconds, a great jumping off point, whereas this probably would have taken me hours to come up with even a fraction of what this is generated in seconds. If you're part of the 1 hour workshop, then be sure to check your resources for a fill in the blank version of the prompt that I just used. Now, from my personal experience, prompt engineering is more of an art than a science. So it may take a couple iterations until you find something you're happy with. The ultimate goal is simply to get you started or spark an idea. At the end of the day, it's up to you to select the question that will best fit your topic and meet your students' needs. Let's move on to part 3. Selecting relevant resources. Selecting resources for an Explore board is similar to acting as a curator who's selecting resources for a museum exhibit. You want to make sure you're searching for a variety of high quality resources that connect back to the essential question you selected. Variety is going to be key because it reflects the multimodal types of media that we regularly engage with in our society. It's also an easy way to differentiate so that there's hopefully something on the board that will catch each student's eye or spark their interest. Some examples of possible resources might include visuals like images or infographics, multimedia like videos or audio recordings, relevant news articles, virtual reality field trips, case studies, or even teacher-created digital resources. Of course, you'll also want to consider the age appropriateness and the accessibility of each of the resources to make sure that all of your students can engage with the content you're selecting. Let's move over to my Explore board sample and look at how you can add resources to your board. Now, I'm doing this in Canva, but you could easily replicate this in just about any other platform, and we'll talk more about platforms here in a minute. I'm going to be adding a section to this board that links students to all the different organizations they can get involved in here in the College of Education and Human Services at Murray State. So I'm going to simply duplicate one of my text boxes that I already have, and I'm going to change this to the word connect, because that's what our student organizations are all about, is helping people to get plugged in. Under that, you're going to want to include some kind of an image. It can be either a screenshot from one of your resources, like you see my examples here, or it could also be an icon that represents it. So I'm going to click on Elements, and I'm going to search the word connect and look for a graphic that I like. Going to size it down so that it fits into my space and change the color so that it's a little more visible. Personally, the reason I choose to build in Canva over anything else is because of the large amount of graphics that I have available at my fingertips without having to worry about any kind of copyright infringement. Next, directly under your graphic, you're going to want to add a short title telling what your resource is. So I'm going to change this one to Student Organizations. The last step is going to be adding a link to your resource. Now, some people will only link the title. Personally, I like to link the action word, the image, and the title, so no matter where a student clicks, they're taken to the resource. It's going to be a little bit different for every platform, but as a general rule, you can click on an element and press Control K, and it's going to bring up a space where you can then copy and paste your URL so that you can link straight to your resource. Now you'll notice that I have this underline. The underline typically signifies that there is something hyperlinked. I don't like the way this looks, so I'm going to simply click and remove the underline. Because I removed that visual cue that these elements are hyperlinked, I went ahead and added verbiage at the bottom that says click to explore. Time for part 4, planning to make thinking visible. So, when I was in the classroom, my students were great at task completion. They could follow directions most of the time, replicate examples that I showed them, or bubble in the correct answer. But as we move to prepare our students for a future that will involve generative I feel like we need to spend more time helping them to become comfortable in the sphere of inquiry and critical thinking. Adding a visible thinking routine to explore boards makes the learning experience transformative. These routines are the antidote to having your students mindlessly click through resources. Visible thinking routines aren't about finding the right answer. Instead, they're all about prompting students to ask questions, connect and synthesize information, and make their thinking visible not only to others, but to themselves. If your students are used to more completion-based tasks, this shift may feel a little like learning a new language. Don't worry, that's perfectly normal. In the beginning, I found it really useful to model exploring an explore board together as a class while providing exemplars of high quality thinking and then, of course, giving frequent feedback. I really like the combination of using an essential question and a visible thinking routine because I feel like it provides that additional structure and scaffolds the experience for students who aren't just used to diving in and exploring. So, a thinking routine like See, Think, Wonder or Step Inside is going to help your students break down their observations and their inferences, and it's going to naturally encourage that reflection and curiosity we want them to have. If you have enough time, I would also highly encourage a quick collaborative follow up activity. After all of your students have had time to independently make their thinking visible, have them share their thinking in a communal space. This could take place digitally using a tool like Padlet or FigJam, or you could also do it through whole class discussion or small groups. Now, facilitating these types of discussions can be difficult, so I would typically provide my students with accountable talk stems and question prompts. As we went further into the year, we didn't have to rely on those as much. Now, this kind of follow up activity really takes the visible thinking routine a step further by allowing students space to not only develop their own thinking, but consider their classmates' perspectives. All right, step 5, last step, platforms and layouts. It's time to pick a layout and a platform to create your board in. As I mentioned earlier, there's no required number of resources or a single way to structure your board. They come in all sorts of shapes and sizes. If you're in the 1 hour workshop to help you get started, I've provided you with 5 different free templates in both docs and slides. These are going to include a game board template with space for 8 resources, a simple 4-square template. This is perfect for younger students or if you just want to focus on a few key ideas. A differentiated template. This one uses color coding to provide differentiated resources based on levels of prior knowledge. A grid template for 3 resources. This one has an integrated thinking routine as well, so students can do immediate reflection in the same space. Finally, I've got a 2-column template also with a built-in thinking routine. If you're using one of these templates, all you need to do is choose a layout and add your content. Of course, you can modify the layouts however you need to best fit your needs. Now, if I find that my students still need some additional structure, I might think about adding a required number of resources that I want them to explore. Now, if you're interested in creating your own Explore board instead of using one of the templates, here are some platforms that would work well. Of course, Google Docs and Google Slides are great options. It's what I used to create the templates I provided. Here's a couple reasons why I love them. One, they're familiar. They're also easy to create in, and you can easily assign each student their own copy through something like Google Classroom. This is perfect if you're wanting to provide a space for students to record their thinking directly on the Explore board. If you're just providing resources, some other platforms you might consider are FigJam, Canva, Book Creator, and Genially. And that's all I've got for you today. Thank you so much for joining the Educate community today for this 1-hour workshop on Explore boards. I honestly cannot wait to hear about how you're going to use this tool to bring inquiry and exploration to your students and your classroom. Please feel free to share about it in the comments below or even shoot me an email. If you found this workshop helpful, we would love to have you like, comment, and subscribe so you're notified each time we post new content. See you next time.